Is still there.
Joy Reid, she's now been sacked by low-rating MSNBC.
President Trump has given another set of lawful orders, and they will be followed. If they're not followed, and all these orders are in keeping with the Constitution and norms inside the military, if they're not followed, then those officers will find the door.
Musk is taking his effort to slash the size of the federal government to a whole new level by posting that federal workers need to explain what they've accomplished in the last week or get fired.
$1 trillion. That's the largest ever U.S. spending plan for the world's biggest company, and it comes with thousands of new jobs across multiple states. Apple is spending 50% more this year in 2025 than it did during the first Trump term. So $500 billion over 4 years.
It looks like we're getting very close. The deal's being worked on, and we're, I think, getting very close to getting an agreement where we get our money back for a period of time. But it also gives us something where I think it's very beneficial to their economy, to them as a country. But, you know, we're in for $350 billion. How we got there, I don't know. But that's a lot of money, a lot of money invested. And we had nothing to show for it. Europeans are in for about $100 billion, and they do it as in the form of a loan. And the Europeans have been great on this issue. They understood it wasn't fair.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily. We are here live back in studio after a great experience at CPAC. Today is February 24th, 2025. Anno Domini. So you just saw President Trump there as well. He's currently meeting in the Oval Office with Emmanuel Macron. Now, Macron is here in Washington, D.C. to try to drum up support for what he calls a European military peacekeeping force to Ukraine. The idea being that a peacekeeping force, of course, which will be made up of NATO countries, but potentially some non-NATO as well, like India, would be on the ground in Ukraine, potentially in a demilitarized zone outside of the Donbass, potentially to be able to stabilize the situation as is seen between the Ukraine and Russia. Now, this is something where a lot of people on the right have come down against, but I will go back to last year when I specifically said this is what was coming for Ukraine. They are looking to Syrianize. They are looking to Syrianize the situation. Now, Poland was initially the first country that they were pushing up. They wanted Polish troops to be in there, and they were going to have Polish troops be the first NATO forces inside Ukraine. Poland, of course, under President Duda, said, no thanks. So they came out. Now France is forced to go hat in hand all the way to the White House to say, okay, well, we'll put French troops in there. Right, French troops going up against the Russians. Yeah, that worked really well the last time it was tried under Napoleon. Again, we remember the history here. We remember, you can go back, well, I say we, when I say we, of course, I mean those of you watching Human Events Daily. I'm talking about the Human Events audience. I'm talking about people who are highly informed, people who are not low information, you're high information. So high information Human Events listeners, of course, know about this. Because what do we do here? We talk about history. We talk about the French Revolution. We talk about the Napoleonic Wars. We talk about all sorts of things that have gone on in Ukraine and Russia all the way back hundreds and hundreds of years, Bolshevik Revolution, etc., etc. Why? Because all of it plays into the current situation. And if you don't get that, like one of these libs out there, then you have no idea what you're talking about. We're right back. Jack Posobiec, Human Events Daily.
truly means.
Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we are back live here, Human Events Daily, Washington, D.C. I want to welcome in the third hour of the Charlie Kirk Show on the Salem Radio Network. Folks, between work, the kids, making America great and healthy again, all of us, look, you know what it's like. You get physically drained. Of course, all the events we've been doing, it happens to us as well. So recently, Tanya and myself started taking supplements from We Heart Nutrition to make sure that we are getting everything we need to stay healthy. We Heart Nutrition creates the highest quality research-backed supplements for men and women at every age and in every life stage. What makes them amazing is their mission. They're pro-family and pro-baby, as well as pro-life, donating 10% of every sale to pregnancy care centers. So when you shop with them, you're not just investing in your health, you're supporting moms and babies in need. Their supplements are made with the most bioavailable ingredients, meaning your body will actually absorb them. No fillers and no junk. With over 1,000 five-star reviews, people are seeing real results and sharing how these supplements have changed their lives. Go to weheartnutrition.com and get their 20-second quiz to have personalized recommendations tailored just for you. Right now, We Heart Nutrition is offering 20% off your first order when you use promo code POSO at checkout. Plus, you will get a free bamboo capsule box with any order of $50 or more. Look, I love the men's multi. It keeps things simple. I want to see if Tanya can outsell me. We might need a promo code for her. I don't know about that yet, but I know I'm going to win. WeHeartNutrition.com. That's WeHeartNutrition.com. Promo code POSO for 20% off. WeHeartNutrition.com. So, folks, we're seeing President Trump there in the Oval Office. He, of course, is meeting with President Macron, and we will be, just so you know, programming note, we will be going. So there's a press conference scheduled between President Trump and President Macron that it was scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern. So obviously it has not yet begun. So we're here in a little bit of a holding pattern. We're going to be monitoring. Our Real America's Voice cameras are at the White House, and our microphones will be there as well to go straight to you the minute that conference begins. It's going to be in the East Room. But understand, this is all about Ukraine, and I'm sure it's going to be about tariffs as well. So we need to understand President Trump, Secretary Besant, Secretary Hegseth, VP Vance, the envoys that were sent to Ukraine 2 weeks ago now have made an incredible impact on this war, which, by the way, for those of you following, today is the third anniversary of the Ukraine-Russia war. So this is the day that tanks rolled across. And now you can sit there and on one side, you hear the mainstream establishment narrative, unprovoked war, unprovoked war, unprovoked war. But of course we all, and of course, by the way, and I'll just say this, right? The war was started when Russian tanks rolled in. That's when it crossed from a disagreement into an actual war. But of course, this iteration of the war isn't the first start of the hostilities between Russia and Ukraine. That began in 2014, when the movement took place in the Donbass to separate and then join and be annexed by the Russian Federation. Why did that take place? It took place because of a plebiscite, Crimea as well, by the way. It also took place because of the overthrow of Viktor Yanukovych, who was the prior president of Ukraine. This is something, by the way, that gets totally lost. People will say, you hear the mainstream, they'll say Yanukovych was pro-Russia. He was a pro-Russian president. He was, he reneged on a deal with the EU. They were going to do an economic deal, and he totally reneged on it. So he had to be driven out of office. And yet, Yanukovych was elected by all of Ukraine. He was Ukrainian. He is Ukrainian. He's still alive. So the fact that he was elected and then driven from office in a color revolution that received backing from the United States, from liberals as well as conservatives. John McCain was over there. Lindsey Graham was over there. Amy Klobuchar was over there. Chris Murphy went over. So you can see this going back and forth. These guys were pushing for the overthrow of the president of Ukraine. They got his overthrow. He flees. It's called the Maidan Revolution, and you can go look this up. And that's what leads to the current situation here, because this process has not been stabilized. I'm not going to say that there haven't been aggression on both sides, but what you have to point out is that every story has two sides to it. Every argument has two sides to it. If you're going to sit there and say, oh, the Russians are this, and this, I'm not even arguing that they're not. But what I am going to say is you have to understand the story from where it began. And that's why President Trump, Hegseth, and the rest of these guys are saying it's a complex situation. It's just that. Like any war, it's a complex situation. Look, I would love if the world worked like a Marvel movie and you got to say, oh, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys and there's nothing else going on. But that's exactly the kind of corporate globalist narrative that they want to put on everything. As it turns out, the real world is a little bit more complicated than that. And yes, there are serious interests at play here. We're talking energy interests. We're talking demographic interests. We're talking seaport issues. We're talking military issues. All of those things, and all of them under the sun and more, went into Russia's decision to begin this war. Okay? All of that went in. But you even have to go back a little bit further than just 3 years ago to understand that who went to the Munich Security Conference just 1 week, I think it was even less than a week, before Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine. It was Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris went to that Munich Security Conference, and she was the one pushing them to say, we are going to get Ukraine into NATO. And it was specifically this, that the Russians had said, if you push for Ukraine into NATO, then we are going to wage war. We will invade if you do this. And Kamala Harris went and said, let's go and do that right now. We got a very special guest, by the way, I want to bring on for a couple of minutes until our break. We're still, of course, waiting for President Trump and President Macron to come on, but a guy who's got some incredible news. It is the CEO of Sticker Mule, Anthony Constantino, joining us. What's up, Anthony? What's going on there at the company today?
Hey, we're unveiling the first official presidential monument to honor the moment that President Trump was shot in Butler and defiantly, courageously stood up, put his fist in the air, and gave everybody a tremendous sense of calm and pride in the face of sniper fire. And it was the beginning of my entrance into politics. I spoke up immediately following that bullet hitting his ear and spoke up, defended the president, sent an endorsement to my 5 million customers. It went viral, and then I put up a beautiful sign that said vote for Trump. And shortly after that, I announced I was going to do a monument too. But we actually commissioned the monument before the election. We commissioned it a month or two before the election, and it's finally done. It's done by an incredible sculptor, and we're going to be giving it to the president. But first, we're going to unveil it here in New York.
So this is incredible. So you're unveiling it there. Is it always going to? Is it going to be at is that your lobby where it's going to be staying at, or are you going to be taking it to other places?
We're going to unveil it in my warehouse. It's beautiful. It's going to look beautiful. We got curtains. It's going to look really fancy. We did a big election night party there, and it was incredible with thousands of people. So we're going to have a big crowd on Tuesday to unveil it, and then we might do a little tour. I was debating the idea, but I want to get approval from the Trump organization, who we're gifting it to, if we can do it or not. But it might be fun to bring it to New York City and rile up some Democrats down there and make them embrace the fact that people love the president. By the way, you were talking about the situation in Ukraine. One of the reasons I'm such a big supporter of the president, you can see my shirt said Trump for peace. He's the one that's going to negotiate peace. He's better at negotiations than just about anybody, and the Democrats are the ones that really led us into the situation where so many people have died because of their inability to negotiate effectively.
Well, and that's exactly right. President Trump, he campaigned on this. He said, look, if World War III is on the ballot, we're going to be turning it off, and people don't like the way that he's conducting himself, but that's exactly what he said he would do, isn't it?
Exactly. You have to talk tough to negotiate. You can't be nice, or sometimes you don't get what you want. I'm learning that very quickly because I'm dealing with some rhinos up here in upstate New York that don't want me to enter Congress. I mean, you be nice to everybody. I say, well, there's a lot of whatever. I shouldn't say the word kiss asses in politics. And, not so many people are tough. We need more tough people. And you don't negotiate and win if you're not tough. You don't negotiate being
We got a quick break coming up here where we're still waiting on President Trump and President Macron to come out there. So give us 1 sec. We'll be right back with Anthony Constantino from Sticker Mule. Right back.
break. I'm Terrence Bates. Thanks so much for being along for the ride. A new day brings a new world leader to the White House. French President Emmanuel Macron is the latest U.S. ally to visit President Trump. The two will join a phone call with other G7 world leaders before ultimately engaging in one-on-one talks. The issue of the war between Russia and Ukraine expected to be central to their conversation, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's willing to give up his presidency if it means peace in Ukraine. However, he's only willing to exchange his departure for Ukrainian membership in NATO.
I'll do it immediately without a long conversation about it. I'm focused on Ukraine's security today and not in 20 years. I don't plan to be in power for decades. Therefore, that's my aim and my dream.
The Trump administration has been adamant in its opposition against Ukraine joining NATO. President Trump has also called Zelensky a dictator and even called for elections in Ukraine. In the past, Russia has made similar claims, saying that Ukraine's current president is illegitimate. The Trump administration is taking its next step today in dismantling the U.S. Agency for International Development, which is known as USAID. Happening today, the administration putting at least 1,600 U.S.-based staffers on notice that they could be fired. Only a fraction of employees will keep their jobs. Those staying on are, quote, designated personnel responsible for mission-critical functions, core leadership, or specially designated programs. The move comes after a federal judge ruled on Friday that the administration can move forward with its plan to pink-slip scores of USAID employees. Today's action escalates a month-long push to dismantle the agency, which has included closing its headquarters in Washington and shutting down thousands of aid and development programs worldwide. All of this comes from Elon Musk determining that USAID's work has been wasteful. Well, that's a quick check of your headlines. As always, we appreciate you being here with us. We'll, of course, have more headlines for you later on. Now, let's get you back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Today, they talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, he's done a great job.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we're back here, Human Events Daily. Folks, while we may have won this election, the fight to restore our great nation is only beginning. Now it's time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile is not just about providing exceptional cell phone service, it's a call to action to defend our rights and freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. If you have a cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. But the difference is every dollar you spend will support the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team will help you find the perfect plan. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/POSO or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code POSO. Switch to patriotmobile.com today and defend freedom with every call and text you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/POSO or give them a call, 972-PATRIOT. I want to go back now. CEO of Sticker Mule, Anthony Constantino, is our guest. And Anthony, you gotta tell me some more about this story behind how it was that you guys built this incredible statue of President Trump, the first statue of President Trump that I think has ever been made, as far as I can tell. Did you crowdfund this? Was this something that you funded? How did it come to be?
No, I moved very quickly and I self-funded it. I put up a beautiful sign that said vote for Trump very quickly. The Democrats tried to throw me in jail over the sign. I beat them in court. And then the Democrat that tried to throw me in jail, he went to Newsweek and he said nobody supported my sign, that people didn't come out to support my sign. Well, I had about 5,000 people that came to support me and my sign when I put it up. I held my first rally for President Trump, and I said, that wasn't a nice thing to say. Let's do another rally. So we did another rally. Another 5,000 people came for my second rally, and I wanted to surprise everybody. I said, look, for everything you did for me, I'm going to do what I can to make us part of history. I'm going to make Upstate New York part of history. And so I said, we're going to commission this beautiful monument. We're going to gift it to the president, and I'm going to fight to bring the president right to where my sign is, and so he can come meet all the people one day. And I think in the event I get in Congress, which seems like it's going to happen, that's almost a guarantee at this point. I think President Trump will eventually make his way up here. Hopefully he will once I'm in Congress or once I'm campaigning. Love to have him up here, but we're going to be getting him this statue. I already got word that he loves the statue, and we're excited to give it to him, and I'm making good on my promises to people. I said I'm going to get the statue done. I'm going to unveil it here. I'm going to make it part of the history of the Trump presidency, and thus far that's happening.
So walk me through, what is the timeline again for the race itself? Because obviously this is regarding a special election. Has Kathy Hochul come out? I know she's been very busy all weekend attacking the Trump administration, but has she come out and actually set a date yet?
So that's up to the president and Speaker Johnson and Congresswoman Stefanik when she vacates. So they're still having a conversation. It's a fluid situation. But the great news is we did our first poll, and I'm the front runner by a lot. 40% in the polls. Admittedly, I'm an honest person, so I'll say I'm tied with another guy, but the other guy's a big Trump hater, so he's not really an option. The president's not going to want a Trump hater in Congress. So it's me and a Trump hater and a few other people that are at 5 or 6%. But my poll numbers are rising really quickly. I'll probably be at 50 or 60% soon. Of course, the Rhino establishment is fighting me, but they have to listen to the voters, because the voters are going to be very upset if they don't have a guy like me fighting for them. We need fighters. President Trump called New York State the most corrupt state in the union. I'm learning very quickly he was right. We have a lot of corruption in New York State, a lot of complacency too. People don't want change here. The Democrats like the corruption, and the Republicans are maybe a little bit scared to fight them.
No, what do you suppose that's for? Is it just because it's this like learned helplessness, or what? Because I mean, we saw President Trump's results right there a couple of months ago, and then Zeldin before that. It looks as though Trump's brand of republicanism is actually something that New York State, obviously President Trump, a New Yorker himself, is actually starting to embrace.
It's a great question, and it's a simple answer. It's called people want to protect their pocketbooks. And so when you have an organization that's not performing, right? When you have an organization that's not performing, and you have a change agent like President Trump or myself that want to get in and fix things, the people that aren't performing, that are making money off the political process, the rhinos or incompetent people, whatever you want to call them, they're scared about their pocketbooks, because they know if I get in, they might not have a job in the future. And look what happened with President Trump at the national level. How many people that were ineffective are now gone from the Republican Party? We have an establishment at the national level. We have an establishment at the state level. It's obvious that New York State's a failing state. It's going in a bad direction, and it's going in a bad direction because there's bad leadership here. So the people are looking to protect their pocketbooks. Unfortunately, some of those people are Republicans. They want to protect their pocketbooks because they know Congressman Constantino means there's going to be things changing, and change means people that aren't good aren't going to be here anymore. We're going to replace them with better people.
Anthony, where can people go to follow you and get more information, man?
The best thing is Facebook. Look me up on social media, any of the networks. I got a very active presence on Facebook, or go to voteforanthony.com.
All right, appreciate it. Anthony Constantino, CEO of Sticker Mule, the first ever statue of President Trump.
break. Thanks so much for being here with us. A federal judge just temporarily blocked Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from accessing personal records at the Department of Education. All of this as part of cost-cutting efforts. Today's order stems from a lawsuit claiming the Trump administration is unlawfully granting access to records that contain employees' personally identifiable information as part of implementation of the president's executive order on the DOGE agenda. The ruling comes from the same Biden-appointed judge who blocked President Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship earlier this month. Meantime, the Trump administration is taking its next step today in dismantling the U.S. Agency for International Development, which is known as USAID. Happening today, the administration is putting at least 1,600 U.S.-based staffers on notice that they're being fired. Only a fraction of employees at USAID will keep their jobs. Those staying on are, quote, designated personnel responsible for mission-critical functions, core leadership, and or specially designated programs. The move comes after a federal judge ruled on Friday that the administration can move forward with its plan to pink slip scores of USAID employees. Today's action escalates a month-long push to dismantle the agency, which has included closing its headquarters in Washington and shutting down thousands of aid and development programs worldwide. All of this comes from Elon Musk determining that USAID's work has been wasteful. A new day brings a brand new world leader to the White House. This time it's French President Emmanuel Macron, who is the latest U.S. ally to visit with President Trump. The two are joining a phone call with other G7 world leaders before then engaging in one-on-one talks. The issue of the war between Russia and Ukraine is expected to be central in their conversation, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he is willing to give up his presidency if it means peace in Ukraine. However, he's only willing to exchange his departure for Ukrainian membership in NATO. The Trump administration has been adamant in its opposition against Ukraine joining NATO. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'm Terrence Bates.
Hey, Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, Jack Posobiec here. We are back. Human Events Daily, third hour, Charlie Kirk on the Salem Radio Network. Folks, listen up, because I'm about to put you onto something that will change the way you start your day. I'm talking about Blackout Coffee, but Blackout Coffee is not just coffee. It's a wake-up call. It's a call to rise and grind, to push harder, and to never compromise on what you stand for. This isn't your average cup of joe. Every bag of Blackout Coffee is roasted with purpose, packed with bold flavor, and fueled by the kind of values that built this country: grit, determination, and a refusal to back down. They don't just make coffee, they make a statement. Blackout Coffee, it's stepping up. It's adding more warriors. So they're adding more warriors right there so that you can get your orders out faster than ever. And when you hit the order now button, you know that your coffee's coming fresh and ready to fuel your next move. Whether you're powering through the daily grind, chasing big goals, or just refusing to settle for mediocrity, Blackout Coffee has got your back. Don't just drink coffee, drink Blackout. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/POSO and use promo code POSO for 20% off your first order. Taste the coffee. Doesn't just wake you up, it fires you up. That's blackoutcoffee.com/POSO, blackoutcoffee.com/POSO. So I see everybody's running around saying, oh, Doge is firing people. Oh, no. Oh, gosh, they're letting people go. Oh, no. Oh, woe is us. Woe is me. It's so sad. It's so sad. Well, I want to go back. We'll just wind the old POSO Wayback Machine here a little bit to remind you how the Biden administration acted when all of the pipeline workers got fired from their jobs, got laid off because of their policies. And by the way, this isn't federal workers. This is actual pipeline workers, blue-collar workers, salt of the earth people that actually make this country run. Let's go back and see how Jen Psaki reacted when she was informed that thousands of oil workers would be losing their jobs.
Hey, Jen, I do have a question on COVID, but first on energy. When is it that the Biden administration is going to let the thousands of fossil fuel industry workers, whether it's pipeline workers or construction workers, who are either out of work or will soon be out of work because of a Biden EO, when it is and where it is that they can go for their green job? And that is something the administration has promised. There is now a gap. So I'm just curious when that happens, when those people can count on that.
Well, I'd certainly welcome you to present your data of all the thousands and thousands of people who won't be getting a green job. Maybe next time you're here, you can present that.
But you said that they would be getting green jobs, so I'm just asking when that happens. Richard Trumka, who is a friend, longtime friend of Joe Biden, says about that day one Keystone EO, he says, I wish he, the president, had paired that more carefully with the thing that he did second by saying, here's where we are creating the jobs. So there's partial evidence from Richard Trumka.
Well, you didn't include all of his interview. Would you like to include the rest?
So how about this? The Laborers International Union of North America said the Keystone decision will cost 1,000 existing union jobs and 10,000 projected construction jobs.
Well, what Mr. Trump also indicated in the same interview was that President Biden has proposed a climate plan with transformative investments in infrastructure and laid out a plan that will not only create millions of good union jobs, but also help tackle the climate crisis. And as the president has indicated when he gave his primetime address to talk about the American Rescue Plan, he talked about his plans to also put forward a jobs plan in the weeks or months following, and he has every plan to do exactly that.
But there are people living paycheck to paycheck. There are now people out of jobs once the Keystone Pipeline stopped construction. It's been 12 days since Gina McCarthy and John Kerry were here, and it's been 19 days since that EO. So what are these people who need money now? When do they get their green job?
Well, the president and many Democrats and Republicans in Congress believe that investment in infrastructure, building infrastructure that's in our national interests and that boosts the U.S. economy, creates good-paying union jobs here in America, and advances our climate and clean energy goals are something that we can certainly work on doing together. And he has every plan to share more about his details of that plan in the weeks ahead.
Well, there you go, Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki going and telling all the pipeline workers, telling them they can go and get green jobs. You can go and get some green jobs. More than happy to have that. Don't worry about going down to the mines. Don't worry about laying pipes. Don't worry about the construction jobs. You're all going to be losing those. By the way, there was another clip I posted up on X this morning of President Biden himself back in 2019 when he was talking about this. And he was also asked, they said, look, these policies are clearly going to lead to people in these industries losing their jobs. And he said, you can learn to program. Learn to program. He said, if you can go down a mine, you can learn to program. If you can be a firefighter, you can learn to program. And I spent the entire morning just digging up these clips of Biden telling workers to go learn to program. Jen Psaki, one of the more egregious ones, saying go get green jobs. And I love Doozy right there. Where did they go to get the green jobs? Did they just magically fall out of a hat? No, of course, that's not actually what happened. Joy Reid, who, my gosh, I got to get the violin out for old Joy. Got to get the violin out. Joyless Reid is losing her job at MSNBC. I tried so hard. I gave her so much content over the years. She's the only person on MSNBC that's ever actually let me on her show all the way back in 2016. And she'll be losing her job the same way she lost her hair. It's very sad. But at the same time, I hope that she will be able to sit and reflect with herself just a little bit more about all the horrible things that she said and done that led her the situation she's currently in. Also, by the way, should have stuck with the Trump hair, Joy. Yeah, honestly, I like Joy with the Trump hair. That was my favorite Joy. My favorite one was her, but we found a video from her when I was going through the archives. Found a video of Joy Reid where she was laughing and mocking police officers and firefighters who were being fired for not taking the COVID vaccine. So think about that. She was laughing. She was mocking them. She was, at the same time, by the way, she was also slandering them, talking about how police officers go and attack minorities and saying how this is some major problem in society. But if you go and look at the FBI statistics, well, actually find that's not true. Speaking of the FBI, by the way, had an interesting evening the other evening, last Friday night, after a confirmation by a certain individual where, what can I say? Folks, I went out with my brother Kevin. We were hanging out with the Fed on Friday nights. That's right, myself, my brother Kev Posobiec, hanging out with the Fed. That's Kash Patel, a.k.a. the director of the FBI. And he had an after party and was gracious enough to invite us to be there and have us out. And I have to tell you, the team that they're putting together, as well as the new deputy director, which news, of course, we all saw yesterday, Dan Bongino being appointed to that position, is going to be something that I think it's amazing, because in addition to all the good that this team is going to do over at the FBI, you just know that for all the bad folks at the FBI, all the bad people, it is going to drive them so completely insane that they're all going to flee the field offices. Think of it. All the field offices of the FBI now have to report to Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. It's actually hilarious. So all of the field office directors are absolutely, the ones that haven't been fired, by the way, are absolutely going to be out the door in 2 seconds. And it's incredible to see. Folks, Patriots in full control. What else can I say? Patriots in full and absolute control, and we're not going back to the way things were. But at the same time, look, as fun as it is to troll the left, and we love doing that here on the program, and we all know I certainly love to do that on X, we got to get serious too. We have to remember that we inherited, the right inherited, and was elected to solve the crises that were going on, multiple crises in this country. Crises of a 3-tier Justice Department. I've told you so many times, I believe it's actually 3 tiers, not just 2, but 3. Okay. The tier for the Democrats and the elites, the tier for the regular folks, and the tier for anyone associated with the right or Trump. That's on the justice front. On the military front, national security front, you got Secretary Hegseth, you got Secretary Director Tulsi Gabbard now. You've also got Pam Bondi at the Attorney General. And on the health front, you've got Secretary of Health, RFK. And Tanya Tay up on Twitter X was tweeting earlier. So you remember how Elon Musk has put out this email saying, "Hey, you have to list 5 things that you did this week." Tanya Tay was joking. She said, "How long before RFK sends an email to all Americans? List 5 foods that you ate this week." Boom. Send us 5 foods you ate this week. 1776 at humanevents.com. 1776 at humanevents.com. All right, we're watching now. By the way, we're still awaiting President Trump and President Macron to arrive there in the East Room of the White House for a presidential press conference. I'm hearing that it looks like it might be starting soon here. We've got it up in the corner. Could be coming any second now. Of course, we're waiting for them. I think I see Stephen Chung, the drill. Stephen Chung, the drill is there. Guys, can we get that up? Let's get that up on the screen. There's larger so people could see it as well. We've got Secretary Besant as well. He's in discussion. I think I see Mike Waltz, the National Security Director, J.D. Vance is back to us, and as well as I think that's Steve Witkoff in the far back. So in the rear. So look, you're seeing these conversations, and this is something for folks to remember, that you really do see the entire administration working together very, very closely. This isn't something where certain people are one angle, certain people are on another. Secretary Besant there, by the way, with French ancestry, so it makes sense for him to, I believe he is a scion of the Huguenots, if I have that correctly, who resided down in Charleston. And of course, bringing the entire team together. That's what President Trump has done. That's what the team is doing now. And we await the joint press conference between President Trump and President Macron here in Washington, D.C. Moments away. We're going to do a quick break. right back. If they come, we'll go directly to them. Jack Posobiec, Hour 3 of the Charlie Kirk Show, his audience here on the Salem Radio Network, Real America's Voice. We'll be right back.
When I'm working long hours, I'm always listening to Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
All right, Jack Posobiec, Washington, D.C. We'll take you now to the White House, where President Trump and President Macron have begun their press conference.
We'll not soon forget it. It was a beautiful day and evening, and many fond memories. I also want to thank Emmanuel for hosting me in Paris last December after a historic election win to witness the reopening of the spectacular Notre Dame Cathedral, where you did an outstanding job in bringing it back together. That was a sad day watching that burn. And 5 years later, you had it up, and it was, they say, more beautiful than it was before. So I think that's a great achievement. That was not easy. France is America's oldest ally. Our cherished partnership has been a force for freedom, prosperity, and peace from the very beginning. We're now working on some very interesting developments. One in particular, as you know, the war between Russia and Ukraine. In the American French support helped us to seize our destiny as an independent nation. In the First and Second World Wars, our citizens shed blood together on the battlefields of Europe. And I'll never forget joining President Macron 6 years ago on the 75th anniversary of D-Day. That was some day. The purpose of our meeting today is to end another battle, a really horrible one, a war, something that we haven't seen since the Second World War, that is ravaging European soil, the deadliest and most destructive conflict that one can imagine. I've seen the pictures, I've seen the satellite photos and lots of other photos, and it's a horrible thing that's happening. Thousands of people are dying a week. This very day is the third anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, which would never have happened if I was president. That was not going to happen. The horrors of this gruesome and bloody war can scarcely be overestimated. Hundreds of thousands of people, Russians and Ukrainians in particular, have needlessly died. An entire generation of Ukrainians and Russian men has been decimated. 1,000-year-old cities have been turned into rubble. Those beautiful spires that you used to see there, they were most beautiful in the world, they say, are lying in heaps of rubble, blasted to smithereens. And it's time to end this bloodletting and restore peace, and I think we're going to do it. We've had some great conversations, including with Russia. Since my return to the White House, we've made more progress toward that goal in 1 month than occurred in the past 3 years. And I've spoken with both President Putin and President Zelensky. And again, a lot of good things toward peace are happening, moving it, I think, pretty quickly. Last week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff conducted successful talks in Saudi Arabia with the delegation from Russia, and I'd like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the King and Mohammed, great people. They're really working hard to get this done. Our focus is on achieving a ceasefire as soon as possible and ultimately a permanent peace. My meeting with President Macron today was another important step forward in that sphere, because he's been very much involved right from the beginning in trying to get it over with, and we're going to get it done. I believe that Emmanuel agrees with me on many of the most important issues. Chief among them is this is the right time. It may be the only time. You know, that's a very interesting and horrible situation, and that could evolve into a third world war. We're not going to let that happen. Should have never started, but it did. And what a mess, what a horrible, bloody mess. I'm also pleased that President Macron agrees that the cost and burden of securing the peace must be borne by the nations of Europe, not alone by the United States. And Europe must take that central role in assuring long-term security of Ukraine, which they want to do. And that's not a very big step. The big step is what's going to happen over the next few weeks. The United States has put up far more aid for Ukraine than any other nation. Hundreds of billions of dollars. We've spent more than $300 billion, and Europe has spent about $100 billion. That's a big difference, and at some point we should equalize. But hopefully we won't have to worry about that. We have other things happening that maybe take that out of the realm of necessity. And while we've given vast amounts of military aid and money in form of grants, much of Europe's contribution has been economic relief structured as loans for which they'll be repaid. Like the Europeans, I believe that taxpayers in the United States also deserve to recoup the colossal amounts of money that we've sent. The previous administration never even thought of that. They didn't think of a lot of things, like why did they let it start in the first place? That is why we must have an agreement with Ukraine on critical minerals and rare earths and various other things as security. And I think that that's happening. I think we've made a lot of progress. I had a report just given to me before walking in that we've made, Emmanuel, a great deal of progress toward getting that. I've been elected by the American people to restore common sense to Washington and indeed to the world. And I believe strongly that it's in the best interest of the United States, the best interest in Europe, the best interest of Ukraine, and indeed the best interest of Russia to stop the killing now and bring the world to peace. My administration is making a decisive break with the foreign policy failures of the past administration and, frankly, the past. I ran against a very foolish foreign policy establishment, and their recklessness has led to the death of many, many people. Under our administration, we're forging a new path that promotes peace around the world. And when I left office for the first administration, first term, we had no wars, we had no problems. We didn't have October 7th with Israel. We didn't have Russia and Ukraine going at it. We didn't have the problems in other parts of the Middle East. We didn't have inflation. It was a whole different world. And you know what else we didn't have? Millions of people pouring through our borders, many of them criminals released from other nations and put right into our land, murderers and drug dealers, gangs. We didn't have any of that. It's a different time, but now we have it and we're fixing it. We'll fix it all up. We'll get it done as quickly as possible. And we've made a great deal of progress. People are saying it was the best month for a president in our country's history. I hope that's right, but I feel it's right. We've done a lot of things in a very short period of time, 4 weeks. As I've said before, it's my hope that my greatest legacy, however, will be as a peacemaker and a unifier. I want to bring peace, not war. I thank President Macron for joining us today in this urgent work we're doing. And we have some wonderful people up front right here that have worked so hard. Steve Witkoff, thank you very much. And Michael Waltz, thank you. Scott, thank you very much. And JD, thank you. They've really done a job. They worked very hard. It's a real passion to get this war ended. And I'd like to now we invite Emmanuel to say a few words, and then we'll take questions. And again, Emmanuel, it's a great honor to have you with us at the White House. Thank you very much, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear Donald. Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, je vais dire quelques mots en français. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, cher Donald, pour votre hospitalité et cette visite.
And for this visit. As you mentioned, we have had the opportunity to meet over the past few years. Since your first term, we've been able to discuss matters in Paris and also here at the White House. And it has always been a great joy to do that, and I would like to commend you. And thank you, Mr. President, for extending this friendship to France and taking part in the ceremony at Notre Dame that you mentioned before. It was a great honor for the French people to reopen the cathedral to the rest of the world, and your presence was a testament to that friendship. As the President said, this friendship dates back to the Revolutionary War, since the beginning of the United States, and whenever we've needed to, we've been able to come together and be on the right side. We've been able to be united to defend peace and sovereignty, namely in the two world wars that marked the 20th century, from Lafayette to Pershing and to the many Americans who landed on Omaha Beach. And we spoke earlier before, and you mentioned that one of those gentlemen was able to visit you here, one of the veterans. This is part of history which puts us in the world that we are in today. And as the President just said, there are many challenges in this world. And over the past few days, we have one main objective, which is the geopolitical situation. Mr. President, I really wish to thank you for making changes to your schedule to meet with us so quickly. I think we've made very substantive steps forward during our discussions, and this is a major step in what we're experiencing today. We had a video conference with all of the G7 leaders, which was an opportunity for us to discuss this matter 3 days after the Russian war in Ukraine, and to express our support for President Zelensky, to the Ukrainian people, but also to speak and share about our desire for a lasting peace. This is what we have spoken about very forcibly over the past few weeks. We thought that this war was only going to last a few weeks when it broke out in 2022. We admire greatly the courage of the Ukrainian people. And Mr. President, I wish to thank you for this. You mentioned that there are responsibilities on Europe's side, and indeed, we have invested $128 billion in aid to Ukraine and the Ukrainians. Ukraine has been able to hold the front of our collective security. It's fought over these past few years for its independence and for its sovereignty, but also for our collective security, because I think that no one in this room wants to live in a world where it's the law of the strongest and international borders can be violated from one day to the next by anyone. Over the past few hours, and as you mentioned this, Mr. President, we've been able to see a few things take shape. First of all, allow me to commend you on your decision to work with President Zelensky and to conclude this agreement that's so important for the U.S. and Ukraine on rare earths, critical minerals, but also having substantive conversations with President Zelensky during this key phase of achieving this deal, which is a major commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty, and I think that's very commendable. We also have a shared desire to build peace. We will have this responsibility. This is 10 years after the war started in Crimea, and then we saw the events in the Donbas region and along the northern part of the country. We want to save lives. We want to bring prisoners back and bring back families and children, because there's also a humanitarian tragedy affecting the Ukrainian people. We had lengthy discussions with the president, and we spoke about our desire to bring an end to conflicts, to have a truce that is measurable, verifiable, and that enables negotiation of a lasting peace, where we will discuss not only Ukraine's reconstruction, its territories, but also the security guarantees, meaning maintaining peace over the long term. As I said to the President, we've experienced peace accords that were only ceasefires without ensuring security guarantees, Minsk 1 and 2. And we want to make sure this doesn't happen again. And I know that the President has expressed the desire to be a player for peace in the region. I've spoken with some 30 European leaders and allies in recent days. We want to bring together these allies, and share the same vision. This peace must not mean a surrender of Ukraine. It must not mean a ceasefire without guarantees. This peace must allow for Ukrainian sovereignty and allow Ukraine to negotiate with other stakeholders regarding the issues it affects. But it is also a country in which we need to shoulder our responsibilities so that we ensure security and stability for Ukraine and for the entire region. And for us Europeans, this is an existential issue. We also spoke about these issues at length with the President. We've worked with President Zelensky and gotten to some of the details of the various phases of the negotiation, and we've also been able to speak about some of this work with our British partners to talk about deployments of peace forces on Ukrainian soil, which are part of these security guarantees. Other countries are ready to join in this effort. Solidarity and support from the U.S. will be crucial to this, and I thank you, Mr. President, for beginning to work with us on this issue. And the agreement that you are preparing to sign with Ukraine and with all these discussions we've had are very solid guarantees that we are understood, and that we have the same wish, peace as soon as possible, lasting, solid peace for everyone, and the renewal of an international situation where we are all able to shoulder our responsibilities, Europeans shouldering their responsibilities alongside their American allies who will shoulder their own responsibilities. I also wanted to to be very clear, Mr. President, about Europe's commitment. We have committed to building a lasting peace. As Europeans, we have committed to being stakeholders in these security guarantees. And we are also well aware that Europeans need to do more for security in Europe, for defense in Europe, and to more fairly share the security burden that your country has been carrying for so many years. Mr. President, you know how much friendship I show towards you and I have towards you since your first term. Europe is very clear-eyed about this. We know what we need to do as Europeans, given the threats surrounding us and the responsibilities that we must shoulder. We spoke about the Versailles Agenda, which allowed the Europeans to take a historic step and increase their investments. Europeans are ready to do even more and to go even farther. And several leaders said that to me before I came here to meet you. Mr. President, dear Donald, you spoke about this peace through strength. We fully share that because we must recognize the sacrifices made by the Ukrainian people and what we owe to them. The President and I also spoke about economic matters and our desire to see more prosperity in the United States and in Europe. We had discussions which will be carried on by our teams, our ministers and secretaries, to flesh out some of those ideas. But the idea is to have fair competition and no bias within competition between our industries. Now, the American and European economies are extremely intertwined. Some 1.5 billion in trade, trillion rather, in goods and services, and I know you've spoken about wanting to look at the balance of payments. We also have a trade deficit, and I know that we need to look not only at goods, but also digital items and goods, which you export. And we want to make a sincere commitment towards fair competition, where we have smooth trade and more investments. You already invest a great deal in France, and France is the fifth largest investor in the United States. And I would like to recognize here all of the American investors who announced investments. Some $120 billion that were announced at the AI summit. This is our wish. We want to have more prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic. We have a shared agenda in that regard. We also spoke about the Middle East, among other subjects. And here again, we have the same desire. We don't want to see Iran obtain nuclear weapons. We don't want, or rather, we want an approach with partners in the region that we can trust. Given Iran's nuclear activities, we want to limit its ballistic capabilities and avoid any type of regional destabilization. With respect to Syria and Iraq, we also share the same desire. We don't want to see Islamic terrorist groups resume any of their activities, because for some time our armies have very bravely been engaged in the Gulf, as you have led, and contributions have been significant and helped stability in the region. And I say this with great sincerity. France was affected by a terrorist attack in 2015, which was linked to the terrorist activity in Syria. And we are in that region at your side to work for more security. Ladies and gentlemen, we had extremely productive discussions this morning during the conference, and we spoke with our ministers and counselors and advisors. And I wish to say After speaking with President Trump, I fully believe that there is a path forward. We share the same beliefs. We know what work needs to be done, and in the weeks to come, we will work on that. Our teams will come together in various formats to make sure that we have this solid, lasting peace with great strength. Mr. President, thank you so much for welcoming me here today. Thank you so much for these productive discussions and for your commitment. Thank you, dear Donald.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Amelia. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. Brian, would you like to ask a question? Go ahead.
Welcome, President Trump. I just want to touch upon real quickly the Harvard poll that came out that had, thank you very much, the Harvard poll that came out had you up 9+ points, and all of your agenda that you ran on, you're accomplishing that. You got the support of the American people, including stopping the war in Ukraine. If you can comment on the latest Harvard poll, I'd appreciate that.
Well, I was honored by it. It was a big poll, and it's usually a poll that leans on the other side of things, the other side of the world, so to speak. But the Harvard poll is a respected poll, and it has us not only leading, but leading by a lot, and leading on every single issue that we've talked about. And as I said, we've become the party of common sense. And I think that's a very important element now, common sense, because what's happening in the world and even in this country, some of the things that took place, many of them are now canceled and the rest are being canceled as we speak. But we've moved very rapidly and I think very effectively. So I was honored by that poll. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Mr. President, you said before that you would like to see Russia.
Yes. Go ahead.
Are there any conditions that you want Russia to meet before the European Union? And your meeting in Saudi Arabia with President Putin, will that happen regardless of any progress on the Ukrainian file?
Yeah, I think the meeting in Saudi Arabia was a fantastic one. We met with the Crown Prince, who's fantastic, a young guy. He's young, but with great imagination and tremendously respected all over the world. And he goes right to the king, and the king is incredible. Gotten to be friends with both of them very much, and they want to see this ended, and they're going all out to make sure that it is ended. I think Russia, likewise, I've spoken to President Putin, and my people are dealing with him constantly, and his people in particular. And they want to do something. I mean, that's what I do. I do deals. My whole life is deals. That's all I know is deals. And I know when somebody wants to make it and when somebody doesn't. I will say this, before I came here, there was no communication with Russia whatsoever, and Russia wasn't answering calls. They were not talking to anybody. They wouldn't talk to anybody, and people sort of accepted that as being that they want to go forward and just keep going without stop. But when I got here, one of the first calls I made was to President Putin, and we were treated with great respect, and they want to end this war. So that's a big thing, because I didn't know if I could say that, but it's a big thing. They want to do it, and the group in the front row that I introduced, they're all very active in it, and we're working on deals right now, transactions right now, and in particular, the big one is to get the war stopped, whether it's ceasefire or direct to an agreement. I'd like to go directly to an agreement, but ceasefire will always happen a little bit quicker. And every day you're saving thousands, or at least hundreds, but thousands in some cases lives. So we want to see if we can get that done very quickly. Yes, for the president, please.
Thank you. I'm a correspondent based in Paris. Question for both of you, actually. Mr. Macron, you were one of the last Western leaders to speak to Putin before Ukraine's invasion. What advice, what recommendation could you make to President Trump to make sure that this time you can get strong enough guarantees, from Putin to get a peace deal that lasts this time? And Mr. President Trump, what makes you think you can trust Putin in those negotiations? Thank you.
Look, I will never give any advice to President Trump. We have friendly and trustful discussion, but my experience with President Putin is the following. Number one, I always think it's good to have discussion with other leaders, and especially when you disagree. I stopped my discussion with President Putin after Bucha and the war crimes because I considered that we had nothing to get from him in that time. Now this is there is a big change because there is a new U.S. administration. So this is a new context. So there is good reason for President Trump to re-engage with President Putin. But my experience is the following, and I shared it with President Trump and the team. In 2014, our predecessors negotiated peace with President Putin. But because of the lack of guarantees, and especially security guarantees, President Putin violated this peace. And I had several discussions, especially at the beginning of 2022, several times, 7 hours with President Putin, 15 days before the launching of the attack. He denied everything, but we didn't have security guarantees. So this is why being strong and having deterrence capacities is the only way to be sure it will be respected. And I insisted on that, and this is why I believe that the US has the capacity to do so. And this is why I think we should never say, I will never send any boots on the ground, because you give a blank check to violate any type of commitment. So I think it's good to have discussion. I think it's useful to have negotiation. I think it's super important to go to the peace. But my strong point was to say, let's try to get something first which can be assessed, checked and verified. And let's be sure that we build sufficient guarantees on the short run. And this is where we are ready to be engaged. As for France, a lot of my European colleagues are ready to be engaged. But we do need this American backup, because this is part of the credibility of the security guarantees. And this is our collective deterrence capacity. And I have the feeling that the President has this capacity.
I think it's very much to the benefit of Russia to make a deal. And I feel that we'll do that. It is what it is. Again, it's a war that should have never been started. It's a war that would not have been started if I were president. But it did start, and it's at a terrible level where cities are burned down and shot down to the ground. It looks like demolition sites, a whole big pile of demolition sites, and we got to get it stopped. Too many people, too much agony. The whole culture is destroyed when you rip down some of those ancient, really ancient or near ancient buildings. It's so sad to see, but I think it's very much to the benefit of this tremendous distrust on both sides. That's why it's good that I'm coming in now, but I think it's to the very much benefit of Russia to make a deal and to go on with leading Russia in a very positive way. That's what you have to do. But I really believe that he wants to make a deal. Maybe wrong, but I believe he wants to make a deal. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, next week there's a key deadline for your Canada and Mexico tariffs. Do you expect those will go back on, or do you believe those countries have done enough on the border to stop those from taking effect? And for President Macron, I'm wondering if you believe that this critical minerals deal with Ukraine represents a de facto security guarantee by the United States, since the U.S. would have an interest in protecting those reserves in Ukraine. Thank you.
We're on time with the tariffs, and it seems like that's moving along very rapidly. We've been mistreated very badly by many countries, not just Canada and Mexico. We've been taken advantage of. We were led by, in some cases, fools, because anybody that would sign documents like they signed, where they were able to take advantage of the American people, like has happened over the last long period of time, except for a little 4-year period that took place 4 years ago. But anybody that would agree to allow this to happen to our country should be ashamed of themselves. No, the tariffs are going forward on time, on schedule. This is an abuse that took place for many, many years. And I'm not even blaming the other countries that did this, I blame our leadership for allowing it to happen. I mean, you know, who can blame them if they made these great deals with the United States, took advantage of the United States on manufacturing, on just about everything, every aspect that you can imagine they took advantage of. I look at some of these agreements, I'd read them at night, and I'd say, who would ever sign a thing like this? So the tariffs will go forward, yes, and we're going to make up a lot of territory. All we want is reciprocal. We want reciprocity. We want to have the same. So if somebody charges us, we charge them. It's very simple, but it'll be very good for our country. Our country will be extremely liquid and rich again. Plus, we're doing other things, as you know. We're finding tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse at levels that nobody thought possible. You're seeing what's going on. And that was also part of the Harvard poll. Do you agree with what President Trump is doing with Elon and others that are looking for the waste, fraud, and abuse? And the numbers were staggering. It was like 70% to 2%. Everybody wants to find out. They don't like it. And, you know, the radical left or whoever it may be starts screaming about the Constitution, but it has nothing to do with the Constitution. It has to do with fairness to this country. It has to do with being ripped off. And when you read the things that all of these billions, and I mean many billions, hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent on, that's all you have to do is stand up here and read them. I could stand up all day and read the kind of things where we're spending all of this money. The good news is that when you think of how rich a nation we can be when we get rid of this, you know, sometimes you'll buy a company and you'll see it was really well run. They accounted for every penny. Well, not much you can do there. You got yourself a bad deal. This one is the exact opposite. Tremendous fraud, tremendous waste. And when you think of what it is, you know, Elon uses the expression caring. If we had people that cared, just cared a little bit when they did contracts, when they negotiated with outside vendors on behalf of the United States. That's what I'm doing now. I'm negotiating for the people of the United States. So we're doing a great job of it. I will say we found it'll be hundreds of billions of dollars of waste and fraud and abuse. Thank you, please.
Look, I think this discussion is a very important one. First, because it's important for the US, and it will be a good occasion for a first very important meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky. Second, I think there is a lot of economic upside on both sides. And third, de facto, there is a recognition of Ukrainian sovereignty, a recognition of the Ukrainian interests, and this is de facto a very important alignment of interests. Now, the security guarantees will be negotiated in due time in a full-fledged package of a peace security. But this peace, as it is now written and negotiated, and as this meeting is scheduled, is an important step forward, full-fledged peace agreement.
Okay, please, go ahead. To the President.
Monsieur le Président Trump, Monsieur le Président Macron. Monsieur Trump, first of all, you say, I would like to make a deal with Putin. So when you do a deal, it's a win-win deal. What are you giving to him, and what is he going to give you, to America? And I was impressed by the way you referred to Notre Dame, and that you were impressed by the reconstruction of Notre Dame. A lot of Americans have sent money to Paris to participate to the reconstruction of Notre Dame. As a President of the United States, are you going to contribute to the reconstruction of Ukraine? Et Monsieur le Président Macron, quelle est pour vous la principale avancée de votre entretien avec Donald Trump? Et pouvez-vous nous confirmer qu'il y a effectivement un accord pour
Can you confirm that there is an agreement to send European peacekeeping troops? Will France participate in that? How many troops? What would they be doing? Would this represent a great danger to send French and European troops to Ukraine?
Well, I guess it's a little strange question because you ask whether or not we're going to, on behalf of the United States, contribute to Ukraine. I mean, we're in there for about $350 billion. I think that's a pretty big contribution. I do appreciate the first part of your question, however, because I think they've done an incredible job with the Cathedral of Notre Dame. I think the president has done. I know he headed it up, and I know how hard he worked, and it took a period of time, but really not a long period of time considering what that was, so delicate, so beautiful. And I was there and I saw the work, and I'm very good at construction. I know good construction. I know bad construction. They did a beautiful job, and this man has to be given a lot of credit for that. It's an incredible cathedral. Most people thought it couldn't be saved, and if it was, it would have to be built in a different form, and we didn't want to see a different form. We wanted to see the same form that you built. So I just want to congratulate you. That was an amazing job. I don't think you've gotten enough credit for it. Someday you will. Someday you will.
Thank you, Donald. Merci beaucoup. Pour revenir à votre question, je considère que
to go back to your question, today's discussion showed several areas of progress. First, we have been working a great deal with President Zelensky to have a proposal that's acceptable to Ukraine. President Trump has confirmed that he will be meeting with President Zelensky very soon to finalize the agreement on critical minerals and rare earths and to speak together about that matter. That's a very important step forward. The second thing is that during our discussions, we were able to go into some of the details about the proposal that we have just made to have a truce, a peace, and be able to measure that and then structure our discussions on that basis. France and several other European countries, along with Ukraine, are hard at work to build this lasting peace with very specific points, including security guarantees, the territories that belong to Ukraine, the issue of reconstruction, the economy, and critical minerals. We've been able to go into the details of those proposals. The third area of progress, which really mark a turning point, is the fact that we were able to talk about the details of the security guarantees. And the President has shown this over the past few days, and he said so a moment ago. We want peace. He wants peace. We want peace swiftly, but we don't want an agreement that is weak. The fact that there are Europeans that are ready to engage to provide for these security guarantees, and now there's a clear American message that the U.S., as an ally, is ready to provide that solidarity for that approach. That's a turning point, in my view, and that is one of the great areas of progress that we've made during this trip and during this discussion. When it comes to troops, in the past, a year ago specifically, we saw a reason to talk about sending troops for strategic regions. Today, when we talk about troops, we're talking about sending them in after we've negotiated a lasting peace. And once we have that solid, lasting peace, that's part of an agreement signed by Ukraine, signed by Russia, and for which we will provide the guarantees. Then at that point, and recently France has worked with the UK to provide its contributions. We've worked on plans, we've worked with our militaries, not to go to the front lines, not to go into occupied territories, but as a show of support to show that we have a negotiated peace signed by both sides, and that is a peace we will preserve. So these would be peaceful deployments of troops, not for combat. These would be deployments of an assurance force. They would be limited, but they show solidarity. I've also spoken with all of our allies, and there are European and non-European allies who are ready and willing to take part in that effort. Countries have helped Ukraine maintain its military capabilities in terms of the number of soldiers it has, equipment, whereas others have provided logistical support on the ground. The question is whether or in what form the U.S. will contribute. And during our discussions, and during the discussions with Russia, we've understood that this would be acceptable to Russia, and that's a very important area of progress. And that means that in this context, the Europeans will shoulder their part of the burden, their share of the burden. We have a strong alliance that we've built over the decades. We have our solidarity, and we have deterrence capacities.
Qu'est-ce que ça signifie?
What does it mean? Would it be dangerous?
Qu'il y a un accord qui va être signé par l'Ukraine et la Russie.
If there is an agreement signed by Ukraine and Russia, thanks to the efforts of President Trump, and if we provide the guarantees and Russia violates the agreement, then it would be in conflict with everyone who is engaged in the peace process. And that is a change. That was something we did not see in the past. That's not what we saw in 2014. So that is the real change that we're marking. We have this deterrence capacity on the American side. We have the capacity for engagement on the European side, and that's something we're going to continue working on together. It's not dangerous, but it's credible. It's less dangerous than things that could happen in the long term. And I think this is what we need to do to ensure security. And I say this very clearly. We're also talking about security for Europeans. I've been saying this for weeks now. If we do not guarantee the security of this territory within Europe, then how can we guarantee our own security for one and all? We live just 1,500 kilometers from Ukraine, and the Germans and Polish are even closer. So our collective security is important. We need to answer this call for Europeans to be more engaged, and Americans will be there still in solidarity. Europeans are working for their collective security, but I really think this was a turning point today in our discussions.
Emmanuel, thank you very much. Great job, and it's been wonderful being with you. Say hello to your beautiful wife, and we will see you again soon. We'll be speaking often. We'll get this thing worked out. We're going to get it done. So important, and great job.
Thank you.
And welcome to America's Voice Live, another special day. Donald Trump there with the French President Emmanuel Macron talking about Ukraine and how they're going to reach for peace. They both seem to be on the same page in some ways. Donald Trump trying to make sure the United States gets paid back, as he says Europe is being paid back because their money to Ukraine is in the form of loans. We're going to get some of that back in the form of natural resources. We're taking a close look at that. We're going to take a quick break here and introduce you to the brand new member of the Real America's Voice team. You don't want to miss it. It's coming up after the break. today, over the weekend from CPAC. You saw some exciting news break right there with Steve Bannon introducing the newest member of the Real America's Voice team, Eric Bolling. Of course, you know who he is, now a part of our team. His new show, Bolling, launches in about 24 and a half minutes right here on Real America's Voice. Eric is, of course, known for his bold commentary, sharp insights, set to make a big impact with us right here. Couldn't be happier to welcome him aboard this team. Additionally, the media world is seeing some other big shifts today. We're going to talk about this. MSNBC dumping Joy Reid, a key figure from NBC Nightly News. Lester Holt, he's out too. With the last person at NBC News that leaves, please turn the lights off. That's what I'm going to ask. Sources say these shakeups are the result of growing concerns over dishonesty and declining trust in the network. I can't imagine why. Also, on top of that, Dan Bongino is continuing to stir up discussions alongside the rise of Doge, both making waves in the world of media and finance. Of course, Bongino on his way over to the FBI to be the deputy director. Join me now. I'd like to introduce you to Eric Bolling. If you don't know him, here he is. Eric, welcome to the program and welcome to the network, my friend.
Well, I appreciate it. Really, really, really good to be here. We're going to have a great time. Yeah, wow, what a day to start this show on Rav. I've been doing the show on a digital platform for the past 4 months, and today we're going to launch here. But it's a crazy media day. That's where I come from. 17 years in media so far, 11, almost 12 years at Fox News, a couple years over at Newsmax. Spent a lot of time on cable, and then, you know, like I said, over here on this side, I'm just watching this. I happen to have a bird's eye view of how the NBC characters and the folks were lying about Trump. They lost, and they lost their audience because they were lying, and so now they're bouncing them, and they're
Every
crying,
day.
Steve.
Yeah, I mean, she's on if you haven't seen this, she's out on social media sobbing today. You know, Eric, maybe you had the same misconception that I did. I thought, you know, we're going to get to it was intense getting to Election Day, November 5th, and it was like rallies, and we were running all over in Madison Square Garden. I thought, you know, once we get to Election Day, maybe there'll be a chance for it to all slow down. We'll get to inauguration, it's going to slow down. It has gotten more intense because Donald Trump is out there delivering day after day, just like we saw him do just now with Emmanuel Macron, looking for peace in Ukraine, and not just in Ukraine. Donald Trump was looking for peace globally. I mean, he has done more in 4 or 5 weeks than any president in my lifetime in 2 terms. I mean, hard to disagree with, isn't it?
No, you're exactly right. As one MAGA friend of mine said, it's like MAGA Christmas every day, and because every day there's something new. We're going to get Greenland. We're going to get the Panama Canal back. We're going to, it's just one new thing a day. And I will tell you, bringing Dan Bongino into the FBI, deputy director of the FBI, it's groundbreaking for what some of the things he's done has been, the left is nervous, they're like, oh, let's keep an eye on him. But something like this, they should be worried because Dan's a good friend of mine. I don't know if you know him. What a tough guy, and what a perfect guy to help Kash Patel really clean things up at the FBI. So Trump is putting some really, really aggressive, smart people, friends of his, friends of ours, really, into high places. And the left should be nervous, and they should be very nervous. You know what's really kind of interesting?
Well, these are no-nonsense guys. I mean, these guys are, Kash Patel's serious. He's serious. I mean, and so here's the thing. You look at what Trump's done as far as the people he's gotten into his cabinet already. 18 members, I think, of his cabinet already placed. At this time in Joe Biden's failed presidency, it was 7. So when these Democrats came out and said, oh, they'll never approve Pete Hegseth, they'll never approve Tulsi Gabbard, they'll never approve Bobby Kennedy, they certainly won't approve Kash Patel. Wrong. Donald Trump is getting a clean sweep every day, and he's taking it to him every single day. And he's got no-nonsense people that are on board for an America First agenda, and they're delivering for the American people. And that's why his numbers are so good.
Well, I think what's happening is he's able to put the people he wants because the American people gave him the mandate to do it. We all agree on that. But I think what happened with, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon came over first, but then NBC cleaning house there. I think what they've realized on the left now is that this whole idea that the country's 50-50, 50% conservative, 50% progressive. I think they realized they were wrong, that the independent voters probably are maybe even the biggest voting bloc of all, and they now lean right. And what that means is they've been catering to what they thought was 50% of the audience, when it's probably only something like 30-35% of the potential audience, by going so hard progressive left. And they realize we got to get rid of these hard leftists because they're alienated the common sense independents who voted for Donald Trump this time. They didn't see it. They are certainly getting their butt whipped, and they're trying to adjust a little too late, maybe for this round. But they'll be back. How are we kidding? NBC is going to still be liberal. MSNBC is still going to have Rachel Maddow and the rest of the knuckleheads that used to work. But they'll still be liberal.
I'm going to guess Rachel's staring at her cell phone today, going, "Don't ring." Don't ring. That's what I'm thinking Rachel Maddow's doing right now, because she's the highest paid player there on a failing network. She'll be next out. All right. What can people expect? You're going to be 4 o'clock Eastern, Real America's Voice, Bolling every day. Hard hitting. What can they expect, Eric, going forward?
Well, I think you're going to see, I don't know. Here's what you're going to see. You're going to see me. You're going to see the real Eric Bolling. Spent, like I said, almost 20 years in media. This is the freest I've ever been. I talk, I speak my mind. It's a podcast format without, I just have to just bring exactly what we've been bringing. It's the true full-throated MAGA voice from me, who spent, if there's one thing I've always been, it's been consistent and loyal to the America First MAGA vision, and that's what you're going to get. And I think it's a perfect lead into to Mr. Steve Bannon at 5 o'clock. So 4 to 5 here, right. 5 to 6 Bannon, yourself, Steve, and Charlie and Bannon in the morning, and Jack. Man, what a lineup. Murderer's row, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'll hand to you. You hand to Bannon. Hands it off to Solomon, and away we go every single day. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. Really great move for the network. Absolutely. All right. Well, I'll be watching at 4 o'clock. There you have it. Eric Bolling coming up. 4 o'clock here, folks. Do not miss it. He's coming up in 18 minutes. All right. Now, we may have won this election. The fight to restore our great nation is only beginning. Now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It's a call to action to defend our rights and our freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all 3 major networks. If you have a cell phone and you have service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. But the difference is this: every dollar you spend supports the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team will help you find the perfect plan. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code RAV. Switch to Patriot Mobile today. Defend freedom with every call and text that you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. We'll take a quick break here on America's Voice Live and be right back, so don't go anywhere. welcome back to America's Voice Live. As you just saw, President Donald Trump was there with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, discussing peace in Ukraine. Look, it's an all-hands-on-deck effort being led by Donald Trump. I mean, you're seeing this global Trump effect. I mean, how do you deny it after what happened in Germany over the weekend with the voters going to the polls and rejecting the socialists and rejecting the globalists? And then in the room today, there's Emmanuel Macron. And Donald Trump saying, look, we're not just going to foot the bill and get nothing in return. Europe has loan agreements. They're getting paid back. Brian Glenn was there for Real America's Voice. He joins me now. Brian, good afternoon. Nice to see you, my friend.
Hey, Steve, good afternoon to you.
I heard you get the first question. You know, it's interesting because you asked about polling, which I think is important. And over the weekend at CPAC, I saw our friend Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen and said, look, they're throwing a lot of garbage polls out there right now. Donald Trump is very much popular with the American people right now. Some of the things, taking men out of women's basketball and so forth, very popular. Closing the southern border, very popular. But if you read some of these polls from the left-leaning pollsters, they're tone deaf, Brian. I don't know what else to say because nobody believes the polls. People I talk to, including Democrats, like what they're seeing, right? And you asked about it.
Yeah, that's the reason why I asked that question, because there's a lot of misleading information out there on polls. If you look at the number one issue that people absolutely get behind the president, it is, well, there's two of them. One of them is the deportation of illegal immigrants in this country, criminals, get them out of here. Number two is really ending the war. I mean, who wants war to continue in Ukraine? I don't understand this, and you and I are old enough to believe, or remember rather, when we thought the Democrats were the party of peace and the war, and the warmongers of the world were Republicans, and that seems like, Steve, it's switched over. But that is the reason why I asked that question, because I think it's important for the international media and for international viewers to understand that what President Trump is doing right now, not just in regards to Ukraine, but with Doge and getting out all of the corruption in our government, is hugely popular with the American people.
No question about that. In the media, the left-wing media, where I'm not sure who's left working at NBC News today. Apparently there's somebody left. I'm not sure who it is, because Joy Reid's gone, Alex Wagner's gone, Lester Holt stepped down there. Last person to leave NBC, please turn off the lights. That's what I'd ask. I think you can buy that network cheap today. But the reason is, Brian, and the reason that you and I are here is because they lied repeatedly with bad polling, bad reporting. They would twist whatever came across. And Joy Reid, look, she deserves what she got. She was not an honest broker, but neither are some people that are still there. If I'm Rachel Maddow, like I was speaking of Bolling, I said, if I'm Rachel Maddow, I wouldn't be wanting to see my phone ring today from the office, right? Because you might be next. You're out.
Yeah, well, this has been going on for quite some time, and we've seen the misinformation flow out of all of the mainstream media the last, 4 to 6 years, and I think it's finally catching up. It's interesting that when Madison Avenue, the ad firms, the media buyers of the world could no longer justify buying these ad times and these blocks of time on these networks, it's no longer paying off. You can no longer continue to fund an agenda. So finally, I would say that the balance sheet came to the forefront, and they looked at some of these people and some of these networks or some of these shows that they had. But, I wouldn't get too comfortable yet. Even though we're going to replace some of these individuals, I could still imagine they're maintaining their focus on anti-Trump. It just won't be as radical as perhaps we've seen before.
Well, we'll wait and see. But in the meantime, I invite more and more people to come here to Real America's Voice. We're going to be honest. Brian's going to ask real questions in the room. We're going to get it done. We're not going to have an agenda, narrative, or propaganda that we're going to spew. We're going to say, look, let's put America first. What's wrong with that? Brian Glenn, I appreciate the work you do. And I know the president has taken a shine to you because, well, you're asking questions that make sense. And he likes it, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
There you have it. Brian Glenn, everybody. Got the first question in today. We're going to take a break and be back on America's Voice Live right after this. Did you see that the economists are forecasting a depression, not a recession, a depression in the next 5 years? We're in a perfect storm as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point with the largest generation hitting retirement. A smaller workforce means smaller tax base. Pair that with a growing national debt and, well, it's a big problem. So what are you going to do to protect your family for the future? Gold is a safe haven in hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. It doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Protect your future today. Text America to 989898. Get your free information kit on gold and a copy of the Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era with a foreword by Don Jr. No obligation, only information. Birch Gold has earned the trust of countless Americans looking to safeguard their money. You can count on them too. Trust America and text America to the number 989898. All right, joining me now is Alyssa Hun. She is a former Democratic, Allison Hun, pardon me. Been a busy day here. Allison, I'm sorry. Nice to see you here today. And
good to see you.
Donald Trump just got done with Emmanuel Macron right there. And look, every day there's stuff going on. You talked about it, like a Christmas every day for the news media, but in a way, we're just getting hit every single day. What do you think about this push for peace in the Middle East, though? We've only got a couple of minutes here. I want to see what your thoughts are on Donald Trump pulling in Macron, pulling in Keir Starmer, pulling in the people from all over the world to say, look, we want peace not just in Gaza, not just in Ukraine, but globally.
I think that's a wonderful idea. We had peace in the first Trump administration. The world deserves peace. We're more prosperous for it. And I love how he's pulling in all the world leaders. He's working very hard for the American public to cut out fraud, grifting, I hope he will come and liberate Ukraine and make sure that there's peace. And after that, come and liberate me in San Francisco, the Socialist Republic of San Francisco and the Socialist Republic of California. Please come to California next.
Yeah, how did your fire sale go on all that memorabilia from Barack Obama you had here a few months ago? Did you get rid of all that stuff? You're just kind of done with it.
It's still here. You know, Obama sold out a lot of the people that supported him, including me. And I know Rod Blago, he was recently pardoned by President Trump. And I heard him on a podcast where he talked about how, he supported Barack Obama and he was just so proud to support the first African-American president. How inspiring. And then when he got into office, he forgot about all the people who elected him, whether they were just regular constituents like me, or they were his political, friends who helped to lift him up out of, the town of Chicago. But that's how the Dems are. You put in all this work. We work together as a team, and they don't care about you anymore after that.
Let me ask you this. You're in a one-party state of California. I've only got about 30 seconds here. We got to get this in, though. Democrats think they can't lose California. Republicans have kind of given up. I wonder if the fact that Democrats think they can't lose is a crack to allow a Republican to run for governor, but and maybe do well. 30 seconds.
Yes, I think it's a great opportunity for someone really strong like a Rick Grinnell, who has a great profile. Socially, he's liberal, he's gay, he's very well articulate, and he's very strong in terms of security. Look at what he did as a special envoy negotiating in Venezuela, and he came into LA with the fires. I think we need someone like him that is like very strong on the boundaries. Yeah. He would be fantastic.
Allison, next time we'll have you for longer. Busy day with Donald Trump. Thank you for being here. All right. Coming up next, it's Bolling, the debut on Real America's Voice. Straight ahead. So you sit right there.
asked, and we heard you, America.
Real America's Voice is coming to iHeartMedia.
Yes, Real America's Voice is now breaking through the white noise of the mainstream media.
Just download the iHeart app, and you'll have all of us right at your fingertips.
Scan the QR code and start streaming RAV anywhere you want.
Real America's Voice, available whenever you need us.
It's never been easier to stay connected with the voices you trust.
RAV on iHeart means you can take us with you wherever you go.
This is huge. The truth on iHeart. Ready whenever you are.
From Charlie Kirk to Steve Bannon, Jack Posobiec to Grant Stinchfield, you'll find all your favorite RAV hosts in one place.
You can listen on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, or Amazon. RAV is now available everywhere you get your podcasts. All you need to do is scan the QR code right now.
Download the iHeart app today and get ready for Real America's Voice.
Scan the QR code and join the RAV movement.
Well, look at that. Will you look at that right there? Beautiful West Palm Beach in the beautiful sunshine of the free state of Florida, folks. Welcome back. Happy Monday. And yes, your eyes are not deceiving you. I'm here. 4 o'clock Bolling will now be broadcast on the great Real America's Voice. You want real, honest, true opinion, news, Real America's Voice. Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon, Jack Posobiec. Kidding me? John Solomon. It goes on and on. What a place. All right, let's do this, shall we? Day one, Ilhan Omar, who certainly isn't known for her intellectual abilities, to say the least, had the nerve to go call Americans stupid. Again, think about that.
These people are just idiots. I really, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people because the level of stupidity that they are displaying every single day is frankly embarrassing, not just in Congress, but as Americans. And the fact that these people are allowed to say just the most ridiculous things tells you that the dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get a Trump presidency again?
That clown actually is a U.S. Congresswoman from the state of Minnesota who told her audience and her friends that she was, number one, indebted to her home country, Somalia, before the United States. That one is calling Americans dumb, the dumbing down of America, and calling us stupid, as she talks to Mehdi Hassan, another, I don't know where he's from, but he's been thrown off television every place. So Mehdi Hassan listening to Ilhan Omar calling me stupid and calling you stupid. Folks, what's wrong with this picture? And we pay her salary. We got plenty more to discuss. So as always, let's react. Well, President Donald Trump sure knows how to get the whiny liberals all riled up. Our commander-in-chief just sent the left into a tailspin with a sponge. Can't make this up. The president, our guy, he lives rent-free in the left's head, but this is fantastic. Sent him into a tailspin with a SpongeBob SquarePants meme. You heard that right. Our president actually posted a SpongeBob meme, and it was absolutely hysterical. Look at that. Done last week. Cried about Trump. Cried about Elon. Made it to the office for once. It's incredible what they're doing. I mean, the left is up in arms. Can you imagine that they're ticked off? They're mad that Doge is finding $500 billion, $500 billion of your and my tax dollars. They're mad that USAID is being shut down after they wasted trillions of our dollars over the course of who knows how many years, 10, 20. USAID was put in place to develop democracy around the world. It was never a humanitarian thing. It was never for some of these slush fund ideas, these woke, ridiculous gay pride parades in Ireland. It was to promote democracy around the world in the 1950s. It was brought out. 1960s, it was brought out, and it's become just a slush fund for the liberal, progressive leftists. It's unbelievable what's going on. And so they're mad that Elon and Doge are saving us money. How do you get mad about something like that? How can you possibly be pissed off that these guys, Trump and Musk, are saving tax dollars? Why do you fight that? Is there another side that I'm not really seeing to this? They're nuts. The NAACP decided to give Kamala Harris a participation trophy over the weekend. I'm not sure what it's for. Maybe being the first woman to certify her own election loss. Take a look at there. I'm not sure what that little smile is. I don't know. Is she happy about me on the first one? Look at that weird half on the lips, I can't stand you kiss she gave beta boy Dougie. Neither of these clowns know what the heck she's being honored for. Well, let's move on to Bernie Sanders, multi-millionaire Bernie Sanders with several $1 million homes. Well, Bernie recorded a video of himself walking around the outside of a nursing home begging you taxpayers for money as he tries to fight back against Trump and Elon. Now listen to this clown.
I am once again asking for your financial support. I don't have to tell anybody that we're living in dangerous and unprecedented times. We are fighting now against the oligarchs, Elon Musk and the others, who are essentially running the government, the richest people in the world. We're taking on Trump's movement toward authoritarianism, putting more and more power into his own hands, undermining the Congress, challenging the courts, not knowing what the Constitution is about.
Millionaires and billionaires. Oh, but give me some money. Is he gone now? Isn't he finished with the Bernie Sanders? Remember, Bernie Bros went away. That didn't work. They had a shot. That actually made some sense, before Joe Biden came along. But now we realize the best of the Bernie Bros ideas were, help people become successful. Trump is doing. It's moving away from the leftist nonsense that these clowns are doing. President Trump, by the way, absolutely destroyed Maine's Democrat governor the other day. Remember that? Janet Mills? Because her state simply refuses to keep men out of women's sports. Grab your popcorn. Take a listen to this.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
I love this guy. His governors, he's got Democrat and Republican governors in the White House, and he's talking to them. And this clown, this Janet Mills says, I'm going to disobey a federal mandate that says no men in women's sports. You're going to do that in public? You're going to tell it to the president publicly? You're going to take him to court? He's like, good, I'll take you to court. I win those things. It should be fun. It will be fun because here's what happens. They talk a big game. They go back to their constituents and they say, oh, I pushed back on President Trump. And then the minute their state needs something, needs some emergency funding for a hurricane or a tornado or a snowstorm, and they call and they go, hey, help us out, Trump, help. And he goes, yeah, I don't think so. Maybe the dudes in your women's sports can help you out. Governor. I wonder how this plays out. My bet is with Donald Trump. How about you? Especially because Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, who was shredded by the president in the previous clip, doesn't seem all that focused on her own state. She was filmed dancing like a lunatic at a drag show. Now watch this clip so we can all scratch our heads together. Watch. There you go. That is the wonderful governor, Janet Mills, governor of Maine, at a drag show. So let me get this straight. That person thinks she stands a chance in court with President Donald Trump. These people, some of them are learned. Listen, let's take a second right here to point out that NBC and MSNBC are cleaning house, right? Another one has dropped at NBC. Lester Holt is leaving the network after a decade on nightly news. And I want to tell you something here. Lester Holt early on in his career, was a great journalist. He was a good newscaster, and then he became political because what else are you going to do at NBC? NBC is as progressive as the day is long. They owned MSNBC, which I believe they're trying to spin off right now. But look what they did. They didn't see this Trump wave coming. So what they thought they were doing, they thought they had half the audience. They thought they had half the country on their side. Well, what the Trump presidency, the Trump win in 2024 pointed out, they weren't splitting the pie 50-50. You know, Fox and whomever on the right and MSNBC, NBC, CNN, and the rest on the left. The pie was much bigger for the Republicans. The pie was much bigger for conservatives because so many people voted Trump. It's that middle independent that went Trump that these leftist progressive networks realized they were completely wrong. They were splitting a third of the pie between them. Meanwhile, Fox and the right were getting 2/3 of the pie. So what are they doing? They're cleaning house. We just saw Joy Reid. Joy Reid got dumped. We're going to talk about her in a second. That guy, Jonathan Capehart, some weirdo freak from the Washington Post, had a Saturday show. He's gone. Ayman Mohyeldin, he's gone. Also gone. All these leftists, we just saw Mehdi Hassan, gone. All these leftists are gone. Lester Holt, gone. They're falling like flies, folks, because they realized they misjudged the American people. They misjudge who we are. They really misjudge the independent voters who really are common sense people who voted with Donald Trump and the rest of us hardcore MAGA right. And that's great to watch. A lot of fun for me. I've been in media for 20 years. And this is a real reckoning. Now, I want to end on something that I think is shaking the leftists up right now. So Trump puts in Pete Hegseth, and everyone says he's not going to get through. I knew he was getting through. He got through. He puts in Pam Bondi. She's through. He puts in RFK Jr. He waltzes through. Tulsi Gabbard waltzes through. Kash Patel. Oh, they're going to stop at Kash Patel. Kash Patel waltzes through. This one has the left's boots shaking in their boots. Dan Bongino, friend of mine, good guy. Well, this clip of Dan Bongino, it strikes because this is what conservatives are really about. Dan has a very successful podcast, very successful, makes a lot of money. But Dan cares about the country more than he cares about making money or being a celebrity. So he's taking on a massive, important new role, working with the president as the new deputy director of the FBI. Listen to this.
It's not going to be the last show, but we've only got a few more left with you. So obviously we're going to be working with a team of people to make this transition from me, political commentator Dan, to deputy director of the FBI Dan. Those are different roles, require different skills. Skills I have and have used before and I plan to use again. The vision of President Trump, Attorney General Bondi, and Director Patel, I am going to do my job to implement that vision. And I can tell you right now, we are going to try our best. Every single thing I have in me, every single strand of DNA cell in my body is going to be dedicated towards keeping this homeland safe, no matter what. No matter what, that's my job. We're going to reestablish faith in this institution. And the good people there doing their job, hitting the streets, developing sources. We'll have your back. We are going to reestablish faith in this institution. The FBI belongs to the American people. Doesn't belong to me. Doesn't belong to anyone else but the American people.
So that's Dan, and he's doing a really important thing. He's walking away from a successful podcast. He'll be back. I think his wife is going to continue, and someone else. But it will continue. It won't be Dan's podcast. It won't be the massive media force that it is right now, but he'll come back and he'll be even bigger when he comes back. But he's taking a few years out of his life to go make no money, fine, but he's got plenty of money, but to go do something different for the country. I think that's just phenomenal. I think Pete Hegseth is doing the same thing. Pete was making a lot of money at Fox, a couple $1 million a year to go on weekends, a couple hours on weekends. He was doing very well. And he walks away from that to be our Pentagon chief, our Secretary of Defense. It's phenomenal what these people are doing. Can you imagine Kash Patel at the top of the FBI, Dan Bongino right under him, and Pam Bondi? Criminals, beware. You're going to get caught. and thrown out. And I will tell you something else. These guys are going to clean house in the deep state. Trump is going to clean DC out, clean the swamp of the deep staters, and I am here for every second of it. Got the popcorn ready to go. Good job on you, Dan. We'll be right back. Bolling. Look at that. West Palm Beach, Florida. Beautiful. It's probably 75 degrees right now. But let's go to a place where it's probably a lot colder than that. Let's go to our Brian Glenn outside the White House. Brian, really good to have you. First day. Had to get my man in here and talk about, I just adore, I adore press conferences again. I hated it when the left did it. But when Trump's up there, man, there is just something. I'm going to throw it in a second. I just want, my takeaway is, I heard everything I knew we were going to hear. We're going to get reciprocal tariffs and whatnot. And you can tell us about what's going on with Ukraine and all, but I just love watching his facial expressions with different world leaders and different people, really. I get this, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he likes Macron that much. I think it's a power play in the way he shook his hand, he like grabs and pulls it in. But when he answers questions, Brian, in the East room or the briefing room, you know this, right? He has a different tone when he likes the guy standing next to her gal, and when he doesn't. Brian, I'll give it to you.
No, you're absolutely right. By the way, Eric, it's so glad to have you here on Real America's Voice. You are a legend in the business, and we certainly are very honored that you're here, and I'm honored to be with you on your first show here with Rav. But, President Trump has such a commanding presence, I would say, Eric, with everyone he brings in either in the Oval Office or in the East Room. He has that leadership. He has that art of the deal. It's like he's the one that's going to come up with the master plan to save whatever the problem is. And you see that on display every day. We've had India, the president of India. We've had the Israeli prime minister. We have, of course, France. We've had some other world leaders in this, White House behind me in just the first 30 days. it's unbelievable. And it's exciting as it unfolds. And once again, these press conferences are back. I think the journalists, believe it or not, I think the media enjoys it because they had a very quiet 4 years, Eric. There was nothing going on.
Very quickly, Brian, so Trump announced that part of the deal he's working with Zelensky and Ukraine is to get some rare earth and some mineral rights or some mineral payback, let's call it that. And I remember in the Iraq War, Trump said he wasn't president, he said we should have sent them all the assistance they needed, but we should have gotten oil in return. Trump is literally walking the walk now, saying, hey, Zelensky, we've given you, he says $300 billion, but that's a huge number. I've heard 180, I've heard 200, whatever. We've given you $300 billion, but you're going to pay us back. That's the first time I've ever heard an American president say, hey, we'll help you out, but it's going to cost you too. I love this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because he looks at this, $32 trillion in debt, and he knows that we can't cut enough to make up for it. So we've got to bring in additional revenue. And I think that getting the mineral rights, not only is it the right thing to do because Ukraine does owe us to pay back some of that stuff, but it also, it helps bring in more revenue, more money that this country needs. And I think once again, it's the art of the deal. President Trump knows exactly what to do in situations like this, and it's just nice to see. And we were mentioning off camera, Eric, how President Macron was reacting to some of the things that President Trump was saying about countries owing him and not paying their fair share. And you saw a little bit of uncomfortness in President Macron, because he knows that President Trump will absolutely call you out if needed, and he does that a lot.
Yeah, let's bring in someone I think you know. I can call you a friend, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Thank you for joining us also on the first show, the Bolling Show on Rev. Really good to have you as well. It may expand this little, thing that Trump is doing. And we just woke up this morning and found out that Tim Cook has committed another $500 billion, $500 billion of business, economic business to the United States that was originally going to, I believe, Mexico. He's bringing it here. Elon in Doge and your Doge. Tell us how much money are we talking about? I've just done $1 trillion worth of math in the first couple of minutes of this segment. We're talking some serious numbers, Marjorie.
Yeah, that's right, Eric. We're talking about a dramatic shift, and this is exactly what America voted for. We wanted change, and President Trump and his administration is bringing it. But thanks to great patriots, Tim Cook of Apple, investing $1 trillion into America's economy, announcing that he's hiring 20,000 American workers. Well, we know exactly where these federal or former federal employees can go. They can definitely fill out a job application at Apple and many other companies that are investing in the United States. And that's because of President Trump, Eric. But what we're doing on the Hill here in Congress on my Doge subcommittee is also something different. And what we're doing is we're investigating the waste, fraud, and abuse on a much deeper level with a heavy emphasis on how we can bring government efficiency. Not just 5 minutes at a hearing you'll be hearing from these members of Congress, but we're bringing forward real action and changes that we want to propose into legislation and work into our budgets that we're voting on here in Congress.
Yeah, I'd love to get you to respond to some of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle who are picketing, petitioning, rioting outside USAID and in other Department of Education. You guys are saving the American people, taxpayer. Our money pays everyone's salaries, and all that waste, fraud, and abuses are hard-earned tax dollars. And you guys are finding places to save us literally trillions of dollars. It will be trillions of dollars when you're done. How do you push back? How do you say, well, there's another side to that? There's no other side to that freaking story. There's no other side to that story. It's what it is. You're saving money. What do you say to Jamie Raskin and Jasmine Crockett and the likes of them people?
Well, what I really say is Trump derangement syndrome is a serious disease, and it has consequences. And we're seeing my Democrat colleagues protesting. Basically, they're defending the bureaucracy, Eric. What they're trying to do is they're trying to protect big government and they're trying to protect this ridiculous spending that's gone on for decades now. And the American people see through it. I mean, this is the same administration that for the past 4 years, they're promoting and paying for drag queens and drag queen story time and drag queen shows in foreign countries. This same administration, these Democrats that are now pitching temper tantrums, like the ones that serve on my Doge committee, they're pitching temper tantrums like we've never seen, to the point where we saw Rep. Garcia go on CNN just after my first hearing on Medicaid and Medicare overpayments. He goes on and he says it's time to use actual weapons in this bar fight. He threatened actual weapons against Elon Musk and against me, and he named me by name. And so, you know, here's the deal. We're not playing with these people. We are going to move forward with the mandate that the American people handed us in November in this historic election. We are going to eradicate the corruption in the government. We are going to do everything we can to rip out the fraud, and we are going to save this country. And you're watching it in action, and everyone I know, Eric, is cheering for it every single day. No one at home is crying about federal employees being fired. You want to know why? None of these Democrats and none of these federal employees came out and tried to protect jobs that were destroyed during COVID shutdowns that were unconstitutional. So everybody tune in for my USAID hearing on Wednesday at 11 a.m. It's going to be big. It's going to be historic, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of things that will outrage you.
I'll tell you what, I'd love to get you back on 4 o'clock on Wednesday after that hearing, because that is going to be a lot of fireworks, because the Democrats are going to put their foot right into their mouth at MTG, because they're fighting against what literally almost every single American realizes is necessary, is cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse. Brian, I tell the folks, and I'll do it because I haven't done it on Rav yet. 2 weeks ago, I got this back. This is my press pass. I had this for the 4 years of the Trump administration. Joe Biden got elected, and they took it away from me. Trump's elected back, I guess. So this allows me to come join you, Brian. But the point is, here's my question. The media, the folks around there, especially, I remember NBC folks being so freaking cocky. They were just so, they're on, like they were high and mighty. Have they been ratcheted down a notch with Caroline Leavitt now and Stephen Chung, who's the comms director? Are they finally feeling that, you know, there's a new sheriff in town?
I think they know they have an administration that's going to fire back at them. And I don't think they have come off their high horse, to be honest with you, Eric. And I've talked to Marjorie about this at great length. They still think they run this briefing room. And some of the arrogance of many in that room is just, I can't believe the questions that they ask. And I kind of want to start asking a two-part question, Eric. One of them is on behalf of the American people, they would like to know. And then I ask my question. Then I like to ask a question on as far as a question that I have, because I feel like for so long, Eric, the questions have not been asked with the previous administration, and of course, I think they now know that Caroline Leavitt, after I think her 5th press conference so far that she's done, she's not going to tolerate it. She will absolutely push back, and she did that on day one. And it was nice to see.
You know, it's also nice to see, Brian, to be honest with you. President Trump comes to you a lot, and that's really a feather in your cap. I mean, everyone doesn't get that question, but he does come to you quite a bit, and that's it's certainly cool to watch, certainly from the studio here. MTG,
it's my honor. Yeah, I like
before we go, Jasmine Crockett seems to be, I don't know, she's got a problem with you. Is she really bubbling up the Democrat ranks as someone that may be considering possibly a presidential run in 2028, like I'm hearing? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I certainly hope so, Eric. I'm going to tell you right now, I might donate to her presidential campaign. She would be the absolute perfect Democrat presidential candidate for 2028. So I certainly hope they raise her up in the ranks.
Well,
I will. I'll endorse Jasmine Crockett. Yes.
You're endorsing Jasmine Crockett here. You know, I endorse her eyelashes. Is that fair to say?
Oh, for sure. Those are definitely a key part of her image. As fake as they come. So yes, she's perfect for the Democrat Party.
There you go. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Brian Glenn, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, folks.
Thank you.
We shall be right back. There it is. Look at that. That's control. Look at that. There's the fellas, the ladies and the gentlemen who are making this show happen. Love seeing this, by the way. I adore the behind the scenes looks, right? So I spend a lot of time in mainstream media, cable networks, and they just never want you to see what's going on behind the scenes. I think it's fascinating. I think it's really cool to see our control room. And guess what we're going to get here? It's called Voice of God at some point, where I can talk to them. They can yell at me if I do something wrong or I've got to hurry up. We're going to have a conversation because I want you to understand what goes on behind the scenes. They work really hard. They work really hard back there to make sure this thing gets pulled off. Like, for example, that last segment, we had a guest who was going to come. He couldn't make it. And 3 minutes before we start the show, we get a second. We get Brian Glenn, who can scramble to a camera. And then we get, I texted Marjorie Taylor Greene while we're in the show. And I said, can you get in front of a camera? She said, give me a minute. I'll get there. This is awesome. Great setup, you guys. All right, the media really wants us all to think Trump is failing and that people don't like him. Fortunately, we only care about one truth, and that's what this is, a truth bomb. And we dismiss the toxic, divisive narratives pushed by the mainstream networks. Numbers don't lie. Hips don't lie. Numbers don't lie. And they will never lie. So here's a look at how Trump's policies are really being received. He's doing extremely well across the board. Look at the support. The blue is support across the board on issue after issue after issue. He is doing extremely well. People want Donald Trump to save us trillions of dollars with Doge. People want Trump to get us out of involvement in that insane war between Russia and Ukraine. And he's doing all those things and more. But you won't hear that. Mainstream media tells you, oh, I was on Drudge this morning, and one of the headlines on Drudge says Trump is underwater in 2 of the 3 categories. He's not underwater. BS, Drudge. What happened to Drudge, by the way? That used to be a solid, you just knew you could open Drudge, you know, you get conservative, common sense news. Now, someone bought Drudge, and I don't know if Matt's still involved. Matt, if you're involved, please clean the place up. Matt Drudge, that is. I don't know, it's become a left-wing, news aggregator. It's terrible. But the fact is, back to this topic, the fact is President Trump's first month is unprecedented. And there's not a single thing that stands out. It's so overwhelming across the board, the whole package. He's aggressive. He's well planned out. And so far, it's a well-executed and action-packed game plan. It's actually set a new bar for incoming presidents. No one's going to be able to touch this. And it's entirely different from his first term. It's undeniable. And yet the media is trying their hardest to position it as a failure so far, as a negative for America. Does this president have it together? Is he executing the will of the American people who overwhelmingly, resoundingly voted for him? They keep asking. Well, he is. All you have to do is look at that our tax dollars have filled for years, decades. But here's what matters the most. Despite the leftist machine and their mainstream media comrades positioning themselves as authoritarian, Americans don't believe them. And what's more is that Americans want what Doge is delivering, like Marjorie Taylor Greene said in the last segment. And again, the numbers don't lie. I'm a numbers guy. Americans, they don't want us to fall deeper and deeper into debt. We're approaching $40 trillion in debt. They want less spending. They want to check our government. They want to check what we've been spending so many tax dollars on. We want accountability. And, well, more than half of the country agrees. They're sick of government waste, and they're happy that President Trump and Elon Musk are finally making all of this happen. But we knew, and they most certainly knew that, much like Democrats use lawfare to attack President Trump and MAGA in every possible way, there was no way in hell that they're going to try and use the law to stop Doge from digging around and saving us money. It wasn't going to happen. Trump wasn't going to let it happen. But a Harvard-Harris poll proves the facts. So here are the facts. A survey of 2,443 registered voters shows that 52% approve of President Trump's performance so far. 52%. Harvard did that. You know, we're going to get into this later on later shows, but you can ask polls, you can ask questions in polls, you can drive people towards an answer that you want. To get 52 in a Harvard poll, I always look at the methodology, and I'll do this another time, but you dig into the methodologies of how many people they polled, how many are Republican, how many are Democrat, how they ask the questions, and you can definitely see a bias in polling, and we will do that. But for Harvard to come up with a poll that said Trump has an approval rating of 52% at this point, phenomenal, folks, phenomenal. All right, we'll be right back. We have a big monologue because Joyless Joy Reid, she was crying all over the internet today because she got bounced from MSNBC last night. We'll be back. right, there. Look at that, folks. There's Control. MD, Ben, Luke, Colin. Get in there, Parker. Hurry up. Get in there. Let's hold on. Wait till Parker gets in there. Oh, was that Drew in the back? No, that's Matt in the back. There they are. There's Parker. There's Parker. I love the control room. We can't wait. All right, that infamous race baiter, Joyless Joy Reid, is out at MSNBC, tossed aside during Black History Month, no less. I have a lot to say. I'm a little sad about this because I'm going to kind of miss her racist rants. But before Joy Reid flies off into what's no doubt going to be an illustrious career, I don't know, maybe a Delta Airlines pilot or flight attendant, here are 5 of our favorite Joyless Joy Reid race baiting moments from this election, and in no particular order, coming in hot with this race-laced, joyless classic Who Can't Handle the Voting demographic of the state of Iowa.
These are white Christians. That this is a state that is overrepresented by white Christians that are going to participate in these caucuses, yes, especially tonight. And this is a hyper-evangelical white state.
White Christians, ooh, bad, right? From the Iowa caucuses over to Super Tuesday, where Joyless was absolutely convinced that white people don't care about being poor thanks to Bidenomics. No, they care about, quote, brown people coming over the border.
But Republican voters don't vote that way. They don't vote based on economics or based on the benefits they're getting economically from the president. They're increasingly, from the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. They're voting on this idea of an invasion of brown people over the border. The idea that they can't get whatever job they want. A black person got it, therefore drive all the blacks out of the colleges, get rid of DEI. That is what they're voting on. They're just voting specifically on racial animus at this stage. It isn't about economics. No.
I'm speechless. How has she been on TV this long? Except that, sorry, Joyless, the top issue for all voters across the board, every voter, the economy, which is a resounding reason why Cammie lost so badly. She couldn't figure out how to fix the broken Bidenomic economy. So can you imagine sitting there, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki bomb, the who's who of Trump derangement syndrome victims, having to sit there on election night on November 5th and have to deliver the news that President Donald Trump had won the election, and not just won it by a landslide. Well, Joy just couldn't take it and had to somehow prove that in no way, shape, or form was it Kamala Harris's fault that she lost. No, Kamala was and is absolutely perfect, according to Joyless Joy Reid.
And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Swifties. She had the Beehive. You could not have run a better campaign.
All righty. Look. You're telling me that having a twerking rapper on stage at Kamala's rally didn't convince Americans to forego the pain of inflation, 9% inflation, illegals pouring over the border, killing Americans, and crippling wokeism in the name of breaking the glass ceiling for potentially the worst, most pathetic president of all time? Shocker. That must have been one of the more painful moments that the race-baiting Marxists over at MSNBC have had to deal with since, the last time Donald Trump won the presidency. But according to Joyless Joy Reid, Kamala Harris lost not because she's a completely incompetent, race-pandering Marxist idiot who refused to acknowledge how crappy her policies were. As always, black supremacist Joy Reid has to blame it on race, and more specifically on white women who failed Kamala by not electing her to try and take over Joe Biden as the trophy holder for the worst president of all time.
And I think we have to be blunt about why. Black voters came through for Kamala Harris. White women voters did not. If you can't flip enough white women, and we've talked about this on this set numerous times, that message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris.
And finally, at least before she got tossed by the Marxist News Network, at least we got to hear Joyless forced to use those amazing words one more time, maybe a few more times. I bring you big balls.
Take a deep breath for just a moment and ponder big balls, that until they allow you all to subpoena big balls and the normalized Indian hate guy.
I almost spit out my Diet Coke. Ponder big balls. Okay. What a national treasure Joy Reid is. And there were plenty of times we thought to ourselves, how could MSNBC allow Joyless Joy Reid to say these things on national television and not be fired or censored? But sometimes it's the moments off camera on her very own social media accounts where Joy Reid really let her racism shine through.
You're also a white guy. Are you saying the we is white folks need more kids? Is this like a great replacement thing where you're concerned that there's not enough white people in the population versus the growth of the Latino population, the black population, the Asian American population? Mr. This is where woke comes to die. Little mini Ron DeSantis, the little tiny governor of Florida, the tiny and I would say probably the most functionally racist governor in America. White, super white, like, mayonnaise sandwich on Wonder Bread, white, from a border state. He could have made a strong argument for her, but he's fixating on these individual countries the same way he did with Mexico when he was running in 2016 and demonizing those people as a way of simply saying that black and brown and non-white people in general are monsters. In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, bring waterworks. All right, this is a new show, and this is a live show. Let's test our illustrious control room here real quick. So one of those sound bites in their control room, listen, I don't begrudge him. She was wearing wigs, that's fine, don't care, hat wigs, but I think one of them was a Trump wig, a Trump hairdo wig. If you can find, it's like the second or third one, maybe two of them, where her hair looked almost a lot like Trump's. Can you find that, you guys? Let's see if we can find that. It was one of those sound bites in that. Just throw it up there for a second. We don't want to hear her. I just want to see this. It looks like a Trump wig, is it not? Put it up there. What do you got? That's going one of them, too. That's close enough. All right. Anyway, before we sit here and think, wow, maybe, just maybe MSNBC has learned the errors of their ways by parting with a blatant racist, well, don't hold your breath.
It just sounds like to me that what Donald Trump is doing is trying to bolster his argument for what he's saying here at home. The basis of the argument is white people are being discriminated against. This is why you got to shut down DEI, because it's not meritocracy.
This is clearly a nod to his boy Elon Musk, because he is a white man from South Africa. He's a white man from South Africa, and of course, the whole system there has, for guys like Trump, they don't have a problem with it. They just never. Why? Because they're trying to impose the same kind of system here.
So yeah, you heard that right. President Trump and white African man Elon Musk are just trying to create an apartheid against black people in the United States, said, by the way, Michael Steele, who used to be the chairman of the Republican National Convention, the RNC. Michael Steele actually was a Republican and an RNC chairman, believe it or not. But now he's saying Trump wants to, and Elon are looking for apartheid. But guess what? Those people are going to replace one of the shows on MSNBC. There's a reason these leftist machine puppets are failing in America. They've told lie after lie after lie about President Trump, about Trump's inner circle, about MAGA, about his supporters. And not just that, they just have lost the trust with Americans, but they refuse to admit their mistakes and they refuse to change. They're getting rid of some of the older faces and replacing them with new ones that deliver the very same messaging. White people are bad. Black people are being discriminated against. We've been showing this for the last 10 minutes, which very clearly indicates that they have learned absolutely nothing. Sure, Joy Reid is out at MSNBC, but what about Jen Psaki?
Because what's happening right now is a hostile takeover of the U.S. government. There's no other way to describe it. And it's not a takeover at the hand of Trump alone. I mean, this takeover is also happening at the direction of his unelected best friend, Elon Musk. His latest target was the United States Agency for International Development. And that agency is the one that not only leads on humanitarian assistance around the world, but also works to combat corruption and foreign aid programs. It's a big part of what they do. I kind of see how that could make Elon Musk a bit uncomfortable.
Jen Psaki seems safer than ever there, too, being touted as the future of the network. In fact, America will see more of Jen's circling back, not less apparently. Psaki is going to be on more during the week. She's getting her own show on MSNBC. And what about Morning Joe? What about Joe Scarborough, who said things like this?
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years.
That was Scarborough about 2 weeks before the election. 2 weeks before the election. Sorry, 2 weeks before Joe Biden stepped aside to put Kamala Harris in. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I'm sorry, he did that right before Kamala Harris took over, calling Biden cogent, more cogent than he's ever been. And then he called Trump Hitler and MAGA Nazis a week before the election. And then he went to Mar-a-Lago. It's no wonder MSNBC is bleeding viewers. We'll be right back. Look at that beautiful golf course, Palm Beach, Florida. Oh, there's a control room. All right, folks, finally checking in with the other side of the world, literally. The Trump effect clearly reaching as far as New Zealand, about 9,000 miles away. They're done with wokeism, done with the rainbow parades, taking over their world too. Watch this. And so what that is in Australia, some natives, the native Australians in New Zealand are are saying enough with the woke pride parade. They stopped the parade in its tracks. The cops had to stay between them. And knows how ticked off those guys are. Like, you want to continue? Go ahead. And look at the drag parade stopped. And like, we want no part of that action. The point is this, yes, Trump is revolutionizing politics in America, but the rest of the world is watching. They're seeing a leader stand up for common sense and for the people that he represents, the people who elected him, and they're saying, we want some of that. We want some of that American, no nonsense, back to MAGA. How many here? MAGA? I was at the thing in the East Room, and the Indian president says, I want MEGA, make India great again. It's fantastic, spreading around the world, folks, and it's great to see. I just love to see the gay pride people going, I don't mess with those guys. Those are indigenous people who they're not to be messed with. All right, this is really cool. This is probably one of the main reasons I signed on with Rav to do this, is because this opportunity right here. I get to, at a couple minutes before the top of the hour, after we've been doing this for an hour, I get to bring in a good friend of mine for a very, very long time. I consider him probably the smartest political mind on the planet, not just in America. The great Steve Bannon. Can we bring in Steve? Steve, just want to do is I love the idea that every day I get to talk to you and talk to you about what your show is all about, but just I get to learn from you. I learn from Steve Bannon, folks. Steve, what's the 5 o'clock look like?
No, I learned from you, Bolling. You're one of the original gangsters of this movement. So honored to have you lead into us. It's just fantastic. When Rob Sig told me, I said, well, what we got to do is we got to do a handoff every day we possibly can. So I am so proud on your first show here on Real America's Voice on the live channel that I get to take the football from you. And your analysis today of the meltdown of MSNBC and the mainstream media. It's been a glorious day, sir, as you can tell.
Yeah, and the other thing we saw this morning was Macron, going to the White House, shaking Trump's hand, and Steve, that handshake that Trump gave him, it was Trump grabbed his hand, and you could see Macron kind of cowering. He's like, "Can I get my hand back?" And to the point where Macron had to take his other hand and get his hand back from Trump. That is one badass power move, I'll tell you, right?
That was very much so. It was a intense day at the White House. Macron shows up, as you know, I think like at 8 o'clock. They had the G7 meeting. Then he came back. We're going to cover that in depth today, particularly Ukraine, security guarantees, all of it, Eric. As you know, this is a historic week. President Trump bringing peace to the world, peace and prosperity. It's a big week, including the fact that it's the first show of Eric Bolling here on Real America's Voice. And I think tonight is the beginning of the last week of Joy Ann Reid. So quite historic Monday, the 24th of February, sir.
Did Joy Ann Reid and all her wigs. I think there's a Trump wig in there. I played a montage of one of the things she was doing on social media. I'm pretty sure she had the Trump blonde wig on, and maybe she is a late blooming convert to the right side. Can you put it up, guys? Do you have it? I think that's it. I think that's isn't that her Trump hair there, Steve? You can't see it. All right. Well, listen.
Oh wow.
I'm gonna leave it to
her wigs. Joy Ann Reid and her wigs
to the war room, which is again, folks. If you're a machine, brother. You do 2 hours in the morning. You come back for an hour. You do week. Yeah. Wow. We are fortunate. The American people are fortunate to have Steve Bannon in front of a microphone.
No. Keeps me out of trouble, Eric. You know that. I got to keep occupied. Idleness for me is the devil's workshop, so I got to keep occupied. But I thank you for the kind words.
Indeed. All yours, Stephen.
Eric, here in Real America's Voice now, the 4 o'clock hour. What a power lineup. War Room in the morning, Charlie Kirk. After that, you've got Jack Posobiec, you got Steve Gruber, Eric Bolling, the War Room.